turns into the sea.
Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we talk with author Leigh Henion about her new book, Night Magic: Adventures Among Glowworms, Moon Gardens, and Other Marvels of the Dark.
Turns in the sea.
Leigh, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
We are here at beautiful Bookmarks in downtown Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's a community-owned bookstore. It's one of the most beautiful and impressive bookstores in the country, and we're so lucky to have it right here in North Carolina. So, Leigh, I want to ask you, or begin talking about your first book, Phenomenal, which debuted on the New York Times bestseller list. I loved that book when it came out. I was so proud of you in that book when it came out. It's about a series of adventures in which you chase natural phenomena around the globe. Night Magic is about you stepping into your yard in Boone. So can you talk about the original idea for Night Magic and how it kept you much closer to home?
Sure. So I have a beloved editor at the Washington Post magazine who they did a pandemic issue and it was like travel writers not traveling. And then the next issue was travel writers traveling close to home. He said, Leigh, I need somebody.
Inching out slowly. Yeah.
Yes. So I was like, inching out slowly. And he's like, so if you're going to inch out slowly, what's something that you've always wanted to do that you've never done? And I said, I've always wanted to see the synchronous fireflies in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So, and I wrote up this pitch. It was something like, I will go seeking fireflies as a form of hope rising in dark times, these light rising. So I went, and it was a fantastic experience. But what I realized in going to see these fireflies is that very rarely in my life have I ever walked around without a flashlight outdoors at night with no source of artificial light. Sometimes I was in, groups of large groups of people, nobody has lights. We're kind of shuffling around. And it was really an interesting experience. And the fireflies themselves were magnificent. Synchronous fireflies, I've always kind of imagined that they're kind of like light. Mm-hmm. So they blink in unison, but it's not like that. It's more of a whoosh twinkle.
Yeah.
So they kind of read the signals from the fireflies next to them. So that was magnificent. It was magical. But in the process of looking for fireflies, I also discovered glowworms. So I've always thought, go around the world. I've always thought, wouldn't it be amazing to go to New Zealand to see the famous glowworms there? There are these neon blue glowworms. You can go into caves, the walls, the ceiling. Everything is a light. But come to find out, when I'm looking for the fireflies, I discovered so Southern Appalachia, Western North Carolina included, is one of the only other places on Earth that has neon blue glowworms, cousins of these glowworms in New Zealand. And spoiler alert, I not only found them when I was looking for the synchronous fireflies in Tennessee, I found them on Grandfather Mountain, not far from where I live in Boone. And ultimately, I found them in my own neighborhood.
Yeah.
So these glowworms that I did not know existed, that I was ready to travel around the world to see their cousins, were right there in my own yard, landscape that I thought I knew very well. So this was the start of the book. And beyond that, I learned a lot about light pollution and how light pollution harms fireflies. And now I understand pretty much every life form on Earth. So I thought, wow, this is something that I want to learn more about. And also I had readers started sending me emails saying, this inspired me to turn my porch lights off more often. And I thought, that's powerful. Yeah. I cannot believe that I wrote a story that has actually inspired someone to take an action and change a habit, because habits are hard to change.
Sure.
But it also changed my relationship to light, and it really made me think about how little we appreciate natural darkness. And natural darkness is something that we are increasingly losing.
Yeah. So one thing, you mentioned total dark, and one thing when I read the book, I was struck by how much total dark there is in the book, and how many times you are with a group of people or with a guy. There's a part in the book where you're trying to start a fire with wet wood with this guy in the dark, and you're both like literally shuffling like down hills, like across little streams. If I'm correct, how did Total Dark change your perception of like the road along your house that you and Archer walk one night? How did it make the outdoors at night less scary? Did it make you more curious about it? Did it make it inspirational? I'm trying to imagine. I live in a neighborhood. I'll never have total dark in my neighborhood. And I think it would scare me if I ever did. Until I got used to it. So how did it change your awareness of the spaces that you thought you knew?
Well, it's really all the things that you've just gone through.
Yeah.
Inspirational. I mean, it's scary to walk in the dark. And I was fortunate enough to find some guides who helped me figure out how to explore the dark, because if you are in a very dark place and you are going to move around, you should walk heel toe, so that you're not tripping over things. I mean, things like this are helpful. So yeah, I think that the time I think we were actually going to look for glowworms.
Okay.
In
with
the
Archer?
scene that you're thinking about, because one of the interesting things is it's not just about having that darkness. It's also about allowing ourselves to develop the night vision that we often don't, allow time to develop. I always love to tell people, people generally think it takes like 20 minutes for night vision to develop. But I love telling people, actually, it takes hours. So you gain the most early on, but you incrementally gain night vision for hours without the presence of artificial light. So if you have never spent hours in the dark kind of pointedly attempting to look for glowworms or something like that, you might not know your own powers.
Yeah.
But so it changed, it changed the way that I think about, my own senses. It changed the way that I think about my neighborhood, because the place that I found those glowworms is a place that I have driven by, windows down, music on, headlights ablaze for 20 years.
Yeah.
Never knowing what was right along the edge. So I think this concept that discoveries can be made, right in your own yard, right in your own neighborhood, that's impactful. And that it once you start thinking like that, the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with Leanne after a quick break. This podcast is produced by Our State Magazine, celebrating North Carolina travel, food, history, and culture since 1933. Check out ourstate.com, where you can explore exclusive content like digital stories, YouTube videos, newsletters, and more. To have each month's issue delivered to your mailbox, visit ourstate.com/subscribe and enter promo code BOOKCLUB, one word, BOOKCLUB. That's BOOKCLUB for $5 off any regular or gift subscription. We're back with Leanne Henion to discuss her new book, Night Magic. One thing that really struck me about the book, Leanne, was not only how much these animals, we're talking about these gorgeous moths that you go and explore. Is that in Kentucky?
Ohio.
Glowworms, hellbenders, salamanders, owls, these just really amazing animals, how much they rely on darkness. But what I learned from the book is how much humans need darkness to survive and thrive. Can you talk about your new understanding of how we need dark? Maybe not to the degree that a glowworm does, but how much we need dark for our internal rhythms.
When you start learning about that aspect, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, because, prior to spending time in the company of bats and moths and all of these animals that depend on darkness, I had not really thought about my relationship to darkness. I think that culturally, when we talk about darkness, we think of darkness as a void, as nothing being there. And so to recognize night as just having this wealth of biodiversity that's so underappreciated, it can really shift the way that you think about darkness, right? Darkness not as a negative, but a positive, because so many stories that we have, so many of the ways that we talk about darkness, it's negative, like, I'm going to tell you a dark story.
Yeah, exactly. It was a dark and stormy night.
Yeah. So these are foreboding ways of talking about darkness. So to think of darkness as a positive, life-giving experience goes against, it's really countercultural.
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking the world as we know it and flipping it. It's shocking, I think, for a lot of people. There are hundreds of species of butterflies. Butterflies get all the credit. But there are like over 11,000 species of moths that vastly outnumber butterflies. Some people say maybe even more important pollinators than bees, but they're just doing this night shift, so we don't see them, we don't appreciate them. But watching a moth react to light, watching all of these animals react to light, artificial light, a flashlight in their face, a moth against a porch light, somehow over time, doing this season after season, species after species, really helped me absorb that I am also an animal. And so, a moth, we think of them as kind of scary, but oftentimes that's because they're acting erratically because they're kind of terrorized by this light. They don't know what to do with themselves. So watching the light against the bulb kind of helped me really understand in a different way myself with my cell phone and my tablet and my computer, to really understand myself as an animal. Reacting to light as a stimulant, because light is a stimulant, but we don't really think about light as anything at all. What is darkness? What is light? I mean, there's some heady stuff in there. Sure. I have to get into the physics of it. But light is a stimulant, and darkness is reduced energy. And so to really start to think about light and darkness as an animal is to recognize darkness as rest. Yeah. Which is something that I feel like a lot of us could use.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially during, this season, the political season, the hurricanes coming into the holidays. You're like, we need a little more turning off of the devices and a little more darkness. And speaking of turning off devices, you're a parent, I'm a parent. One of my favorite parts in the book is when you and your son head out on your road, and you're pulling him off the tablet or off hanging out with his friends or watching TV, and you go out into the darkness. And there's a moment where you write that darkness for your son is not going to be what darkness is for you because of the proliferation of light. What kind of impact did that have on you as a parent, but also then as a writer, getting your son out into this darkness? What was the emotional impact there for you?
Well, he was a good sport. I do think he was a good sport. He did some glowworm exploration with me. And I remember foxfire, which I loved, searching for bioluminescent fungi, foxfire. I'm familiar with the books. I've always been, familiar with the books, but to learn about that was extraordinary. And he was a good sport. And especially because, as I said, night vision, you have to be a little bit patient, to allow your vision to fully develop. And so not only was he kind of humoring me by going out with me, sometimes he was hearing me going out to sit on a log for like an hour before waiting for darkness to completely fall. So that was really special for me to be able to share that with him. He's a teenager now. We used to do stuff like that all the time when he was really young. But it was good to get out there and do that. And to think about darkness as habitat. We really just don't think about darkness much at all. Yeah. Maybe because it's it's the unknown. It's terrifying.
Well, I remember when I finished reading the book, I was emailing with you or talking with you on the phone about something, and I said, I really want to get my daughters out in our yard at night. So for those of us with kids, young kids or older kids, do you have any tips? Like, are there certain kind of flashlights, like red light flashlights that are beneficial to use, or like what? How do we get our kids out there at night in the dark?
Well, red light is helpful because it's a slow siphoning of your night vision rather than the total bleaching, which a blue spectra flashlight would have. But I think that like the real winner in terms of like just really all ages, because this is what's I feel like when we talk about wonder, and I talked about that in both books. I mean, when we talk about awe and wonder, I feel like we often go to children, like I actually I attended a science festival, and it was like all kids, and I'm like, wait, what about like the adult kids and the the adults with the wonder? So I kind of think like childlike wonder and then like adult size wonder. So for all ages, I feel like UV flashlights are pretty amazing in terms of getting kids interested, because you can take a UV flashlight and it's really there's bioluminescence is living light. So that's what fireflies create. That's what glowworms create. But there's also biofluorescence, which is where it's kind of like basically think of it as like animals that kind of hold light in their fur. They hold energy in their fur. So when you put a UV light, the animal can glow. Like there are a lot of creatures that can glow. So UV flashlights are really fun. You'll also find a lot of trash.
Yeah.
In places because it just makes things show up. It's like take a black light and it's like, ooh, the whole yard is turning kind of like wild.
Yeah.
But also beyond that, to really just introduce darkness as a place of value and as a place of discovery. I think that just even creating that narrative and giving that space, just leaving the flashlights off and becoming more comfortable in darkness, like listening, I'm embarrassed to admit that before I started researching this project, I mistook a mourning dove for an owl because I think that mourning doves kind of sound more like owls than owls. They sound like the hoo-hoo of the children's books, but a screech owl's kind of like a little pony in the forest, kind of neighing up in the trees. So like recognizing that there are things that to be discovered if you just give darkness space and if you just give yourself time to witness. I think that's a really powerful thing for children. I think that it's a powerful thing for adults. I mean, this book is really, for the first time, I that's what I was really doing, and so I allowed the space for darkness in my life, and it brought many things because, starting out, the unknown and darkness can absolutely bring danger, but the unknown and darkness can also bring wonders yet unimaginable. Absolutely. And so that is what I feel like I'm continually trying to remember, and I think that that's something that for children or anyone that's a meaningful concept.
And I can say that in every essay in this book, whether you're by yourself with a guide or you're out with a group of individuals on a mission to find whatever it is they're looking for, there is inevitably a moment when someone says, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I never expected this. This is gorgeous."
Right?
Every piece, and I felt that so deeply, and felt so inspired to get out there and turn the lights out and see what I can find in my yard. So I got to do the North Carolina lightning round again.
Oh,
We're closing it out with this again,
okay.
But these are less controversial questions.
Okay.
So my first this one might actually be controversial. What is your favorite animal that is native to North Carolina?
What? Favorite animal? Not even favorite bird, but just like
favorite animal. Can I say what I thought you were gonna say?
Well, no. I mean, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, it's humans. I'm like humans. Humans are my favorite North Carolina animal.
Okay, that's not what I was expecting. I thought you were going to say the Hellbenders.
I do love hellbenders.
I know, and you've written
do.
about Hellbenders.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
I
love
think
them.
Hellbenders, here's some controversy, Leanne. As UNC Asheville graduates, our mascot is the Bulldog. It's fine. A lot of schools have the Bulldog. UNCA should be the Hellbenders.
I love this.
It wouldn't that be?
Yes.
I mean, immediate surge in sales
I
of
support
paraphernalia.
this. I support
You
this.
heard it here, folks, on the Our State Book Club podcast. Last question of the lightning round and of our time together. What is one of your favorite places to be outside in North Carolina?
My absolute favorite place to be outside is my yard on the banks of the South Fork of the New River.
Okay.
Unquestionably. But I have so many favorites. I mean, we could go on. I have a map in my mind. I could just take you on a small tour.
We'll settle on the banks of the river there for now. But thank you so much for joining us, Leanne. This has been such a pleasure. And to be with you and to have known you for as long as I have and see you do the things that you've done, it's amazing. So, and thank you all for joining us as well.
What might it be like underneath the sunrise in a state of flight? Coming back on me, it seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit, never tasted, no turning to other things. Will you be, will you seem? Sweeter fruit, never tasted, don't turn